Mhm.
I'm honored to be here, guys. My name's Kent Hovind. I taught high school science and math 15 years. I've been a Baptist preacher almost 50 years. And I believe the Bible's true and evolution is stupid. Evolution's worse than stupid. It's a dangerous religion. It's nothing but a religion. There's no science behind evolution. And it's dangerous. We teach the kids they're an animal, and then we wonder, why are they acting like animals? Well, duh. You teach them they're an animal. I don't know. I've done 339 debates now with atheists. You can watch a lot of them on our channel, Genesis Baptist Church channel, or on Rumble or on a bunch of other places. Go to my website, drdino.com, and see all that. I'll be glad to answer any questions. We take on atheists all the time. God said he made everything in 6 days. Everything. That would mean dinosaurs lived with Adam and Eve, not millions of years ago. So in my seminars, I cover, they're 18 hours long. You can get them for 50 bucks, 18-hour seminar. Watch it, copy it, return it, and get your money back. I don't know anybody else does that. I used to loan my videos out. I learned right away. Christians don't steal, but they borrow and never return. So you pay for it. When you're done, give it back, get your money back. I can't think of a more fair deal. But the Bible, I was a young Christian, 1969, from Illinois, East Peoria. I started reading my Bible and started coming across the dates in Genesis chapter 5. I got a chart of that somewhere here. No, I don't. Bobby, give me a new timeline, would you? I think I gave it away. Oh, no, here it is. The Bible says that Adam was 130 when Seth was born. And then he lived 800 years after that, Genesis chapter 5. How do you live to be 900 years old? I cover that on video number 2, why they live to be 900 and why there are so many legends of what's called a golden age. Cultures all over the world, non-Christian cultures, talk about a time when man used to live to be 1,000. Why would they have a crazy legend like that? Well, it doesn't matter. But the fact is, there are legends like that, and the Bible certainly teaches that. It's also a biological fact that reptiles never stop growing. They never stop. So if a reptile could live to be 900, he'd get 50 feet long. The dinosaurs were big lizards with Adam and Eve. And Satan has been using God's own creatures to turn people away from God for a long time. And we're sick of it. We're going to do something about it. Reach as many as we can. We have Dinosaur Adventureland here in Lenox, Alabama, a Christian camp, a museum, a science center, all based on science and the Bible. Lenox is a town about that big, 30 people. We're straight north of Pensacola, 70 miles. Get your magnifying glass and see if you can find Lenox. That's us, Dinosaur Adventureland. Anyway, what topic did you guys want to discuss here?
Yeah, I think we're just ad-libbing as we go. But like, seeing as you touched on the dinosaurs, touch on the fossil graveyards where we just find, all kinds of things all twisted together as if they died in a huge flood. Maybe touch upon that, if you would.
Sure. What happened? There's no question there's an awful lot of fossils in the ground. I mean, like trillions of them. Fossils are abound. There's not a problem finding fossils. But what happened in 1830, somebody made up the stupid idea that these layers of the earth are different ages. Charles Lyell made up this geologic column. He was a lawyer from Britain. Sorry about that, but he hated God, hated the Bible. And he was close friends with other people in Darwin. And Lyell made up this column, and he said each of the layers of the earth is different ages. And they gave them names, Jurassic and Triassic and Mississippian and all that stuff. It's all baloney. It doesn't exist anywhere in the world. There is no geologic column. No such thing. But this is the Bible for the atheist right here. Think in terms of, well, back in the Paleozoic era, there's no such thing. I ask them in the debates, I say, guys, you believe the top layer is younger? They'll say, well, yeah. I say, let me ask you a question. Where did it come from? Where did all that dirt come from? Did it come from outer space? How can the layers possibly be different ages? If I shake this little sand art toy up, which I have here somewhere, it disappears. Here we go. Okay. Buy these at Walmart, and you flip them over, and they make 20 or 30 different layers of, beautiful sand colors. Okay. Are the layers different ages? No. If you shuffle a deck of cards, is the top card now younger? They're all the same age. So this whole idea of the geologic column, this is where the problem started in 1830. Teaching the kids the layers are different ages, and it's just not true. Over the world, petrified trees are found standing up, running through all these layers. Well, if you got a petrified tree connecting all the layers, how long does a dead tree stand around before it falls over? Around here, maybe, 2 years, not millions. The petrified trees in the standing position are found all over the world, and they just ignore them. Guys, this is proof positive your layers cannot be different ages. And I cover this on my video number 4 about the lies in the textbooks. But what happened in the early 1800s, they started teaching the kids the stupid evolution religion and the geologic column. And Darwin came along and wrote his book and said, wow, animals are all related to each other. Well, no, the Bible says they'll always bring forth after their kind. That's all anybody's ever seen in world history. Cows make baby cows. There are no exceptions. There are 450 cattle breeds now, and they might have had a common ancestor called a cow. That's not proof they're related to mosquitoes and pine trees. But in the textbooks, they put these family trees, they call it. They got everything going back. Look at that. The human and the bird and the ladybug and the dinosaur all have a common ancestor at the frog. This is not science. This is propaganda. This is brainwashing for the poor kid that's got to memorize this. These silly family trees abound in our textbooks, and they teach the kids before they can read that they're related to a mosquito and they came from an amoeba, and you're related to a whale. This is all propaganda, but this started the problem. We're telling the kid they're an animal, and they act like animals. Now, how do we justify telling them that's not right? I ask atheists all the time in my debates, how do you tell right from wrong? How do you tell if anything's wrong? What do you mean by wrong? If evolution is true, there's no such thing as right and wrong. I asked an atheist, I said, would it be wrong for you to go next door and kill your neighbor's baby and eat it? He said, well, yeah. I said, whoa, whoa, whoa. The lion does it to the zebra all the time. If we're just an animal, how come it's okay for the lion to do it and it's not okay for us to do it? They don't have an answer. Where's the standard to measure right and wrong? What happened in the 1800s? We took away that standard for knowing right and wrong. And we've seen our society crumble ever since. I think evolution is the most dangerous religion in the history of the world. Okay?
Well said. I have a question for you, Ken. So, could you touch upon for a second the fact that discordant fossils are found in the geologic column, quote unquote geologic column? You know, disharmonious fossils where they're not supposed to be, or according to evolution theory that contradict the theory, like animals that are that don't fit the theory. You know.
Well, they made up not only the geologic column in 1830, they made up the index fossils. And they said, in this layer, you should find dinosaurs. It is true the fossils that we find are sorted a little bit. They're found in random all over the place, but generally there's an order. Birds are usually found on top, and clams are usually found on the bottom. I would agree. So what does that mean? Well, to the atheist, that means, well, clams evolve first and birds evolve last. I say, no, guys, clams are found at the bottom because clams are already at the bottom when the flood starts. That's where they live, at the bottom. Birds are found on top because they're the last ones to drown in a flood. They can fly around till they run out of gas, and even then they're going to float because they got hollow feathers and hollow bones. Of course they're in different layers. This has nothing to do with evolution. Maybe the animals are sorted based upon their habitat. Maybe they're sorted based upon their intelligence. As far as anybody's been able to determine, clams aren't too smart. Okay? Maybe they're sorted based upon mobility. Clams can't run very fast. Of course, they're the first ones buried. Maybe they're sorted based upon their body density. Clam shells are heavier than bird feathers. We've got hundreds of petrified clams in the closed position. When a clam dies, it opens right away. How do you get petrified closed clams? You got to bury it alive. All over the world, including the top of Mount Everest, petrified clams in the closed position are found. That means they were buried quickly. Noah's flood would have done all that. See, there's a phenomenon I'll take a while to explain called tidal pumping. The Earth, as the moon pulling the water up on the Earth, making a bump called the high tide, it holds that bump like a magnet, but we're spinning constantly. So people on Earth get to see high tide, low tide, high tide, low tide. It changes every 6 hours, 12 and a half minutes. But to the moon, it just stays right under the moon. Well, during Noah's flood, the continents were not sticking up through the water to interrupt the tidal changes. So the tide could become harmonic, and the tide would go up and down about 200 feet. Today it goes up and down about 6 feet, 5, 6 feet. A Fundy over there in Canada goes up, so 80 feet. But the tide average is about 5 feet. Number 6 is more on this. But this tidal pumping, if the water's coming up and down 200 feet, where's all the water coming from to fill that big bump? Sideways? The moon is constantly sucking water in from all four sides to keep the bump full while the Earth spins, which means from one side, the water is being sucked in at the same speed the Earth is turning the other way. Well, at the North Pole, the Earth turns 0 miles an hour. At the equator, it turns over 1,000 miles an hour. 1,038.6 for you technical folks, depending on altitude. So if the water is going sideways at 1,000 miles an hour and coming up 200 feet, it's going to bring in a layer of mud 50 feet thick in 10 seconds and bury the clams alive. And when they wake up dead, they can't even open. And petrified closed clams are a very common fossil. And the atheists, I don't think, have an answer for it, other than to say, well, it's an anomaly. And they move on to something else. Stop. No, it's not an anomaly. It's common. And it would only take one to prove the point. Rapid burial is exactly what would happen from Noah's flood. In 2 Peter chapter 3, Peter said, in the last days, there's going to be scoffers who are willingly ignorant of the creation and the flood and the coming judgment of God. They don't understand what that original creation was like. It was different than what we have. Today, people only live to be 70, 80 years old. Before the flood, everybody lived to be 900. Something was very different. We could talk about that if you'd like. But they don't understand. The scoffers don't understand the creation. They don't understand the flood. What would a worldwide flood do? Well, it would, by the tidal pumping up and down, it would form all the layers sideways. These layers formed sideways, not vertically. This geologic column does not exist. When you flip these things over, all the layers form very quickly, and they form sideways. So, yeah, I just want to strengthen people's faith in the Word of God. Say, man, the Bible's true. I tell people, if you'll watch my video series, at the end, you're going to say, wow, the Bible's true. And then about a week later, you're going to sit up in bed in the middle of the night and say, oh, no, the Bible's true. Oh, no, I better change a few things in my life. And that's the goal of all this. We're trying to get people right with God. Go ahead.
I actually have a question real quick, if I can.
Sure.
So I couldn't agree with you more that atheism is a religion. How do you substantiate that, just so I can hear a more expert way of doing it than I probably do?
Okay, well, look up the definition of religion. A set of beliefs concerning the cause, nature, and purpose of the universe. Okay, what caused the universe to come into existence? What's the nature, and what's the purpose of the universe? Well, according to evolution, it came from a big bang, and there's really no purpose at all. We just got here by accident. So they believe that they have a set of beliefs concerning the cause, nature, and purpose of the universe. It involves devotion and ritual observances, often containing a moral code governing the conduct of human affairs. A specific fundamental set of beliefs and practices agreed upon by a number of people. Well, a lot of people believe in evolution. Doesn't make it true, but a lot of people believe it. Under Britannica, Encyclopedia Britannica, religion, human beings' relation to that which they regard as holy, sacred, and absolute. Consisting of the way people deal with ultimate concerns about their life and fate after death. Okay, if you believe in evolution, what happens when you die? They have a belief on that. They believe you go back to dust. Nothing happens. They don't know that. You can't know that. They believe it. I believe you face God and go to heaven or hell based upon what you did with Jesus Christ. Here's Oxford English Dictionary, religion. And you can just look it up. And religion is a strange thing about religion is we all know what it is until someone asks us to tell them. As Augustine said, what then is time? If no one asks me, I know, but I have to say, if someone asks me, I don't know. Nobody knows what time is. We don't know what gravity is. Okay, strange thing. So I think first you've got to say, okay, you believe in evolution. The evolutionists believe in 6 things. This is their religion. They believe in cosmic evolution, the Big Bang. They think time, space, and matter existence from nothing. A dot of nothing exploded, which is real stupid in my humble opinion. Here, Big Bang. Kids are taught this though. How did the universe start smaller than an atom? This is European Space Agency. Time, space, and matter all began with the Big Bang in a fraction of a second. The universe grew from smaller than a single atom to bigger than a galaxy. Whew, that's fast, okay? That grew pretty fast. What size was the universe? Roughly the size of a human being. Oh, Forbes magazine. Okay, let's see. American Museum of Natural History. The moment the Big Bang, 13.8 billion years ago, the universe began as a tiny, dense fireball that exploded. What caused this explosion is still a mystery. There's no question they believe these things. You cannot possibly know any of this, okay? Here's SciTech Daily. How did matter come from nothing? The first matter came from nothing. Came into existence 1/10,000th of a second. That's quick. After the Big Bang, particles came into existence. Space.com. What is the Big Bang theory? Let's see. Simply put, it says the universe as we know it started from an infinitely hot and dense single point that inflated and stretched at unimaginable speeds. You can Google it yourself. The Big Bang is something they believe in. And I don't question. They have a right to believe whatever they want, but they shouldn't call it science. This is stuff kids have to learn in school, though, like it's part of science. I wouldn't mind if they put the Big Bang in a religion class or taught it in a private school. No. They want all of us to pay for their religion to be taught. The Big Bang theory, here it is. The cosmos goes through super fast inflation, expanding from the size of an atom to a grapefruit in a tiny fraction of a second. That's quick. So the Big Bang is the first part of evolution that they have to believe in, and you can't possibly know that. It's just not part of science, that's all. I point out, even if it were true, we still don't know. So science is what we can know and prove and test and demonstrate. You don't know anything about the Big Bang. Secondly, we have what's called, I got plenty of stuff on that. You'd have to have, after the Big Bang, evolutionists believe in chemical evolution. That all Big Bang produced hydrogen, but then that hydrogen somehow turned into everything else. You think gold, silver, platinum can come from hydrogen? I'd like to see how to do that. Okay. And I got all kinds of stuff on quotes on that. So what I do in my seminars, I show the 6 different meanings of the word evolution: cosmic evolution, chemical evolution, stellar stars and planets forming. Nobody's ever seen that happen. Organic evolution, life starting from non-living material. They've never seen that. Macroevolution, where you change to a different kind of animal or plant. Nobody's ever seen any of these. This guy, I debated this guy, Dr. Dan. He said, oh, this mutation, what causes evolution. I'll debate him again anytime. I'll debate anybody you can find. I'm lucky to get, I've had 339 debates. I'm trying to get to 500 by the end of the year. So please, have all the atheists call 855-BIG-DINO extension 4, schedule a debate with my tech guy, or go to tech support at drdino.com. So there is simply no evidence for evolution. Then God said they'd always bring forth after their kind. He said it 24 times in the first 7 chapters of Genesis. That's all we've ever seen. Cows produce cows. 450 breeds of cows. I agree. Some give more milk. Some have more beef. Some can last in cold weather. Some last in hot weather. But they're still a cow. Same thing with dogs or anything else. Let's talk about a useless dog. There it is. Let's see. There's my wife's dog. So I point out that evolution is something they believe in, and you're welcome to believe in it. But the first 5 meanings of the word are purely religious. Nobody's ever seen any of these. Number 6, what we call microevolution, is a lousy term. We should not use that term, but they do. So I'll just say, okay, variations happen within the kind. That one has been observed. That one is science. The first 5 are not science. They're religion. Sorry for taking so long, but this is my pet peeve here. Go ahead.
No, thank you. And I'll open up the room to everybody else. I just want to add one more quick comment. I think the most audacious claim they make with no evidence is that there is no God, which is what atheism means. How could they possibly know ontologically for a fact that there is no God?
You can't know that. I asked an atheist once, I said, do you know everything? He said, well, no. I said, okay, do you know half of everything? He said, well, no. I said, okay, let's just pretend for a minute that you know half of everything. Would it be possible for God to exist in the other half you don't know? He had a strange look on his face. It was almost as if he were thinking. Not quite. Oh.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Well, one second. We definitely can arrange some debates for you, Ken. We've got a lot of evolutionists and old Earth creationists that want to get a stab at talking to you, but
Hang on. Let's say,
Yeah,
by the way, I love the way you British pronounce it, evolutionist. Thank you. That's the better way to put it. Go ahead.
sorry. Yeah, but basically, Face has used that joke many times. We debate a lot of atheists here at the Theist Experience. That's our normal go-to routine, and it's good to hear you seem to fall in line quite well with our view of the atheists. So appreciate that as well. I think, Bok, you were going to ask a question, so I'll let you go. Sorry.
Go on the FPS if you
Yeah. So, Kent, you said that there's no science to back evolution. If that's the case, why do 99% of surveyed biologists accept common ancestry, 30% which are Christians, as the great Christian biologist Domshansky said, nothing in all of biology makes sense except in the light of evolution?
I will debate him or you on this topic anytime. The fact that a majority of people believe something has never been proof that it's true. 55 million Germans followed Adolf Hitler. Does that make it true? How many million Chinese are following their stupid communist propaganda over there? The majority opinion of anything has never been true. The purpose of science is to examine what we believe and say, is this really true? Nobody's ever seen a cow produce a non-cow. If you wish to believe a cow and a pine tree are related, you can believe whatever you want, but don't call it science. The fact that a lot of people believe in these family trees has nothing to do with science. Majority opinion is a lousy argument for anything. So I think that's a false, and whether some great Christians have believed it or not, I don't know. I'm sorry that they did. I'll debate them too. God said he made everything in 6 days. God said he made them to bring forth after their kind. What examples can you give, or can anybody on the panel give, of any animal ever producing something other than their kind? Have we ever seen a dog produce a non-dog or a cow produce a non-cow? I'm not aware of any. Let's see. Cows, different breeds of cows, different breeds of dogs, 339 recognized breeds of dogs now. Probably had a common ancestor called a dog. Example of one where it didn't happen that way?
So let me ask a follow-up question. So do you think these 30% of biologists that are Christians, are they lying about evolution?
No. They're brainwashed. A lot of Christians followed Adolf Hitler too. They were simply brainwashed. Sounds like you've been brainwashed. I can fix that. Okay.
Okay.
Most of the panel here, Ken, just so you know, you're in good company. Most of the panel, we're all Christians, and there's a few. I think that there's only 2 evolutionists, but they've got questions for you. They've got good questions that I'm sure you'll enjoy answering. So, you know,
Take any questions they got.
yeah. Maybe we could make a different type of debate. I was thinking, and I messaged Aaron Ra before, and he said he'd come and have a conversation. So maybe we could get you and him in here at the same time and just make it happen, you know. But we'll see. We'll see about that in the future.
maybe Ken, maybe seeing as we were just talking about like building off what was said just a moment ago, maybe give that quote where those trees, the phylogenetic trees or the root of life or whatever they call it, tree of life, how the quotes, so the official quotes where they say this is not because of the evidence, this is more just our paradigm informing this. You know the quotes, I think.
Well, see, those family trees they drew a bunch of lines on paper. I could draw a line on paper between a Corvette and a bicycle. That proves they're related. I drew a line on paper. You see what I mean? This is dumb. These family trees don't exist. There's lots of kinds of corn, lots of kinds of wheat, 4,000 varieties of potatoes. Let's see, a bunch of leopards and lions. Probably the leopards and lions and tigers had a common ancestor. They crossbreed. They get a tigon, a liger. Okay. That doesn't prove they're related to a pineapple. This is where I just object. They take the evidence that we see and agree on. Animals can produce a wide variety. There's a lot of kinds of dogs, big ones and little ones, but there's a limit. The big dog now is what, 4.5 feet tall at the shoulder? You're never going to get one 50 feet tall or 10 miles tall. There is a limit. Have they reached the limit? I don't know, and actually I don't care, but there is a limit. There's a limit in size for the smallest dog. Do you have the little one there, brother? Here, bring it up here. I found this thing walking on the street about a month ago. Adam. There. You tell me, how long would this dog last in nature on its own? The squirrels would eat it. Okay. They spent years crossbreeding dogs to make this happen. Completely useless. Wouldn't live 5 minutes without somebody taking care of it. So man has been able to produce a variety of dogs through selective breeding. They selected a part of the gene code that was already available. They didn't get the dog with wings. They don't have that in their gene code. There are animals with wings, a lot of them. So what they've done with whether it's natural selection or artificial selection, either one, they're selecting something already available. You can't make any. Natural selection and artificial selection do not create anything. They select what's already available. And that's why I say if you selected all the people under 6 feet tall and killed them, save everybody over 6 feet, you do that every year for 50 years. Pretty soon you're going to have a whole population of people over 6 feet tall. Now, does that mean you can make a population of people 400 feet tall? No. Did you make anything? No, there was already people 6 feet tall. You selected. Darwin saw natural selection on the islands, the Galapagos Islands, at work. And he was right. Boy, this island only has tough nuts to crack, and only the birds with a heavy beak can crack them. Good job, Charlie. That didn't explain how the beak got there or how the bird got there. There was already a beak on the bird. He just discovered the process that nature selects certain beak types to live on certain food supplies. That's not science. I mean, that's not evolution. It's a variation of a kind, and it's a gene pool that already exists. So this whole family tree is nothing but lines on paper. It is artwork. It is not science. Tell them all I said so. Go ahead.
Right, no, good point. And they at one point they were positing what's it called, punctuated equilibrium, because the evidence just wasn't there. I don't know if you want to mention that.
Well, I'm just not hearing him well. Can I get a headphone or something? And what about punctuated equilibrium?
Yeah, at one point they were positing that, wasn't they? Because the evidence wasn't really there, and there was problems with the deep time model. Just wonder if you want to mention that.
Well, if you don't talk about the deep time, I assume by that you mean billions of years. I think there are hundreds of ways to show this Earth can possibly be billions of years old. If I told you this ink pen was 10,000 years old, you'd say, I think I can prove that's wrong. Made by Bic Corporation, and Bic didn't exist till 1946. Oh, that one fact just proved my pen is not 10,000 years old. It's less than 1946. Okay. I could go through a series of things and prove this ink pen is not 10,000 years old. So when someone says this Earth is billions of years old, I say, guys, excuse me just a minute. The world is spinning. Would you agree? Yeah, we agree. Would you agree it's been well documented that the Earth is slowing down? We know the Earth slows down 1,000th of a second every day, and we know why. Tidal friction, Coriolis effect, lunar drag. We know some of the and internal friction with the magma. We know the Earth is slowing down. That's why every 3.5 years, every year and a half, they have to add a second to the clock, or three years, I guess. They call it a leap second. The Earth is slowing down. Well, that would mean it used to be going faster. Okay. How far back in time can you go speeding the Earth up 1,000th of a second every day? And before that's going to make a problem. See, if the Earth were spinning faster, the Coriolis effect would be much greater with the wind patterns, and the Earth would bulge out at the equator like I am a little bit. And so I think the speed of the Earth slowing down is one of hundreds of factors that show it's not billions of years old. That doesn't tell me it's 6,000 like the Bible says. The Bible dates do add up to 6,000. Okay, the Earth is about 6,000 years old. That's clear from the Bible. Now, from science, I think we can show it's not billions. I'll give you one more, and then we know the moon is going around the Earth. That's been well studied and documented. And we know the moon is getting further from the Earth. The moon is leaving us about 1,000th of a second, about an inch and a half every year, called the lunar recession problem. I cover this on video number 1. The moon is getting further from the Earth. I don't know anybody that argues about that. Okay, well then, that means it used to be closer. If you bring the moon back in closer, you got a problem. At some point, especially if you want billions of years at 1.5 inches a year, bring it in for billions of years. 1 billion years ago, the moon is close enough that the orbit collapses, like two magnets getting them closer together, because of what's called the inverse square law. If you took the moon to 1/3 the distance, you take that 1/3, flip it, and square it. It's 9 times the pull at 1/3 the distance, not 3 times the pull, 9 times the pull. And so 1 billion years ago, the lunar orbit collapses. Well, then why are we telling the kids it's 4.6 billion? Because you need 4.6 billion years to turn your frog to a prince? Okay, well, then get a new theory. You can't have 4.6 billion years. You step outside and look, the sun is burning 5 million tons of fuel every second. We'll go back in time and add 5 million tons of fuel, 5 million tons to the sun every second back in time. Eventually, you're going to have a problem where sun's gravity becomes stronger and it starts sucking all the planets in. So in my video number 1, I cover maybe 30 different scientific indicators. This world is not billions of years old. I'm sorry, you can't have billions of years. So get a theory that does not include time, deep time, and then we can talk. But they always, when you ask them, how can an amoeba turn to a whale? They say, well, over billions of years, stop. You can't have billions of years. Make a new theory. How did the amoeba turn to a whale? As I've often said in my seminar and in my debates, I say, I got right here in front of me, somebody made me a pacifier with time on it. Oh, that'll solve the problem. Keeps them happy. If that doesn't work, get more time. Oh, yeah. Now they're happy. Yeah. You can't have time. I'm sorry. You can't have deep time. So I'll give you 50 more reasons why if you want them, but hopefully that's enough. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's great. That's really good. If no one else is asking anything, I'll ask
I
another
actually
question.
have a
Oh, go on,
question.
you go. Yeah, you go. Go ahead.
Ken, I was just wondering if you had any thoughts on the infinite regress that atheists will posit to get around these, the causality, cause and effect, I should say, relation.
Well, explain what you mean by infinite regress. You mean keep going back in time
So,
further?
yeah, so we'll argue with atheists and say, how can something come from nothing, right? It just as Thomas Aquinas laid out in one of his 5 ways, something can come from nothing, blah, blah, blah. So they'll say, well, what if the universe infinitely existed?
That doesn't answer the question, where did it come from? And it doesn't answer the question about entropy. Everything is winding down. The Earth is slowing down. The stars are burning up their fuel. The sun is burning up its fuel. Everything we see is winding down. So it had to have a beginning. So this is, I think, a silly argument or silly belief if they believe in the infinite, it just was always here. That doesn't answer the question. A, where did it come from? And why is it here? Why are we here? And if we are nothing but a bunch of molecules that got together by chance, how do we even know we're here? How can we trust our own thinking? How do you even know you have a brain? How can we know anything? So this is, I think, a ludicrous argument that it shows their desperation. They want badly. They'll take any theory as long as it doesn't include God.
Absolutely. Absolutely, man. That is exactly what's going on.
I believe completely on faith that God created the heaven and the earth. I've never seen God, never. I trust him. It's by faith. I believe that. I think it's logical that there has to be something beyond time, space, and matter. If God is locked in time, he's not God. This is not 2023 in heaven.
Amen.
God can go, he's in all time at the same time. There have been many times I wished I could go back just 5 seconds to undo the dumb thing I just did. Can't do it. We're stuck in time. And so God's not. God created time, space, and matter. He's outside of that. I was in a debate with 3 atheists at once at Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University, and one professor said, where did God come from? My 2-minute answer to his question is, somebody told me 900 million views on all the channels, TikTok and everything else. Just type in, where did God come from? I believe the question is invalid. If I said, why are elephants orange? You'd say, well, stop, they're not orange. I can't answer the question because they're not orange. Bingo. Where did God come from has 4 invalid words in the 5-word question. Where involves distance, space. God's not stuck in a space. He's in all spaces. So the word where doesn't apply to him. He's already everywhere. Did involves time, past, present, future. God's not affected by time. That word won't apply to God. Come from, again, indicating distance or location. If God's already everywhere at all times, the question's invalid.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a loaded question. Absolutely. It's a ridiculous question. And I think, like you're saying, it's they're desperate at this point. They really are desperate. They have no philosophy. They have no evidence to back up their worldview. They just have faith, literally blind, dumb faith. It's not even reasonable faith at this point. You know what they're appealing to.
But here's the big difference. Evolutionists have a faith, and they're welcome to it. But they want to call it science, which it's not, and they want all of us to pay for it to be taught in the schools in science class, which it should not be. They should teach evolution in a religion class or in a private school. The Muslims can have their private school. The Mormons can have their private school. Have your own private. But if we're all going to have to be forced to pay for what is in the public schools, then they shouldn't either teach all religions, which you can't possibly do, or teach none, or don't even have the public schools. But if you're going to have a public school, don't put evolution in the classroom. It's not part of science. It's a religious belief, nothing more.
Yeah. I have a question. Kent, would you agree with this statement that evolution really qualifies as a philosophy but not as science? And when asked for the evidence of evolution, evolutionists often think that describing their theory or reiterating the philosophy of evolution is somehow providing the evidence for it. Would you agree with that?
Well, sort of. You have to be careful to define that word evolution. That's the slippery word. What exactly do they mean by this evolution? That's why I give the 6 different meanings in my seminars. Which one are we talking about here? Because when we say the word evolution, we're not thinking about the same thing that they're thinking about. They're thinking about, wow, tigers and lions are related. Oh, okay. And they probably are, and might have had a common ancestor. But I'm thinking tigers came from a dot of nothing exploding. Now, that's not science. So if you carefully define the 6 meanings of the word evolution, micro, macro, cosmic, stellar, etc., then the argument's over. At that point, people say, do you believe in evolution? I say, well, it depends what you mean by that word. Well, things change. Oh, I believe things change, but I believe the changes are limited. And I believe the changes are never going to go outside of the genetic code that's already in that creature. I think farmers have selectively bred cows to get 450 breeds of cows. Some can live in cold weather, some can live in hot weather, some give more milk, some live longer, some make more babies. They can select something that the cows already do and maximize that, like the dog. They can select Chihuahua or Great Dane out of the gene code of a wild dog. And you can probably do it again. I was speaking at a church one time on this topic, and one lady said, Brother Hovind, my family's been in the dog breeding business for 100 years. Great-grandpa started this company. She said, I can tell you right now, if you give us 20 or 30 generic mutts, just any mutts you want, pick a mutt, we'll start and we'll selectively breed those dogs, and in 100 years, we'll make the Great Dane and the Chihuahua and the Doberman and everything in between in 100 years. But it's still a dog. Evolutionists look at that and say, wow, think what would happen if we had billions of years. First of all, you can't have billions of years, and thinking what might happen puts you in with SpongeBob as a partner. Imagine. We don't see it. Science, what we can observe. I say, let's start with the assumption that elephants can fly. Well, we can't start with that assumption. They can't fly. So let's start with the assumption we got billions of years. I'm sorry, you stop right there. You can't have billions of years. Not possible. Anyway, go ahead.
Okay, so I noticed in the chat, so we have 70 people in the chat, not Fox, and a lot of them want to ask questions. So is there any way we could field a few questions from the chat? Because they're complaining in that they think we're throwing him softballs. So could we ask maybe what they think are a few tough questions?
I definitely think so. I'm sure Kent would be happy with that. I just wanted to touch on one more thing. Right in your sort of opening slideshow presentation there, which was exceptional, by the way, Kent. We really appreciate it. You mentioned something about what the world was like before the flood. Maybe you had something you wanted to mention about that.
Okay, on my video number 2 of my series, I cover that for an hour and a half, okay? What was the original creation like? I'm a strong believer in what's called the canopy theory. It would take me a minute to call up my slides on that. I have 50,000 slides, but the Bible teaches there was water above the firmament. It says clearly in Genesis chapter 1, the firmament is where the birds fly. So there used to be water above the firmament, water above where the birds fly. Well, how can that be? Today, the atmosphere we have is about 50 miles thick. It varies greatly, but say 50 miles of air over the Earth. If you surrounded the Earth with a layer of ice above that and compressed it down to 10 miles, like I believe the Earth was, let's see, pre-flood, hyperbaric firmament. No, let's see. Like I said, I got too many slides in here to keep track of all of. The canopy theory is, I think, well supported by the evidence that we see. I got it right here. Here we go. Slide number 428, Alt-DV. 428, enter. This would be a picture of what I believe the earth was originally created like. And 2 Peter said the scoffers would be ignorant of the original creation, what it was like, and ignorant of the flood. There used to be water in the crust of the earth. There still is a lot of water in the crust of the earth. That's why we have subterranean, hydrothermal vents. They got to the bottom of the ocean and found millions of hot water vents squirting up into the bottom of the ocean. Well, now, if they're squirting up into the bottom, where's that water coming from? Lower than that. So, there used to be and still is a lot of water in the crust. They did an article a few years ago about they think there might be 10 oceans worth of water in the crust of the earth right now. But anyway, I believe there was a canopy of ice 2 or 3 inches thick surrounding the whole world like a big greenhouse. That squeezed all the air down to maybe 10 miles. If you increased air pressure on the earth, everything could breathe easier. You get up to a tall mountain like Mount Everest, 5 miles tall, you can hardly breathe. So squeezing the air down would make breathing easier, make animals able to live longer and grow much larger, and explain why dinosaurs had nostrils the same size as a horse. How's he going to get enough air? Well, today he couldn't. But before the flood, he could. Increased air pressure, increased oxygen concentration. I think I've got stuff on that. Here, let's see. Pre-flood oxygen. Let's see. The Bible says they lived to be 900, before the flood came. When they find amber, which is petrified tree sap, I got a piece of it here, I think. I got some in our science center. Air bubbles, maybe you saw Jurassic Park where they drilled into the amber and got the mosquito blood. Well, they also find air bubbles in amber, and these air bubbles contain 32% oxygen. The air we're breathing today is 21% oxygen. So something must have been different back then. Let's see. As canopy of water overhead, I think increased air pressure and gave the earth and had more oxygen. Slide 226, Alt DV. 226. There. The Earth's atmosphere today has distinct layers, 6 layers. Nobody argues about that. Thermosphere, exosphere, mesosphere, ionosphere, troposphere. If there was a layer of ice, say 10 miles up, squeezing the air down, this canopy, the ice itself would help block UV light coming through, minimizing the aging process, and blocking UV light and increasing air pressure. The ice canopy might have been held up by like a big inflatable building, because if it was one continuous shell, air pressure would just hold it there, like an inflatable building. It could have been held up by the magnetic field, because super cold ice is magnetic. And I cover all that. There's Japanese float their trains off the tracks with magnets. There's a pumpkin frozen, super cold, floating over a magnet. So it's called the concentrator effect, but that's another story. So I think the earth had this canopy of ice. The Jews have always believed this. The book of Josephus, he said God made the heaven above the universe and surrounded it with ice. He placed a crystalline firmament around it. They said it was 3 fingers thick. So call that 2 inches or so. This guy said it's only 2 fingers thick. And I say the Jews probably started a fight over that one. Is it 2 fingers or 3 fingers? I don't care. There was a canopy of ice overhead, and it protected the earth, and it would keep it an even temperature inside. An igloo can be 50 below zero outside. It'll be 61 degrees inside. Ice is a good insulator, believe it or not. So this canopy of ice would have been up above, squeezing our current 60 miles or so down into 10 miles, increasing air pressure, maybe 100%. And underneath there was water. The Bible says he founded it upon the seas and established it upon the floods. He layeth up the depth in storehouses. He stretched out the earth above the waters. So understanding what the earth used to be like, with water above, protecting them from sunlight, from radiation, and squeezing the air down, giving more air pressure, and water underneath, would make most of the surface of the earth habitable. Today, 70% of it's underwater. The Bible says God formed it to be inhabited. Today, a lot of it's not habitable. We got 10% ice caps, 10% deserts. So I think the earth was very different when Adam and Eve saw it. It was largely habitable. You could grow potatoes from the North Pole to the South Pole. I think the earth is tilted over today 23.5 degrees, and that's what causes our seasons, which is why a couple days from now, December 21st, is the shortest day for us in the Northern Hemisphere and the longest day for them in the Southern Hemisphere. But if the earth was not tilted, if it was circling the sun perpendicular to its orbit, then everybody get vernal equinox or spring equinox. It'd be equal time. North Pole to South Pole, 12 hours of daylight, 12 hours of darkness, and even temperature with the canopy overhead. Anyway, I think that's why they find stuff at the North Pole frozen, like camels, mammoths, huge beavers, 8 feet tall, frozen. Some of the camels and mammoths are found frozen with food still in their teeth, and they died standing up. They froze standing up. They couldn't even fall down. I think they were buried in rapid snowfall from this canopy of ice being shattered when the flood started. The fountains of the deep broke open, the water shot up, shattered the canopy, being super cold and magnetic. It'd be sucked in and dumped on the North and South Pole. Instant ice age. Instant, maybe over a few weeks or a month. The snow is raining down on these critters up there, and they get buried standing up. They died of suffocation. Google the mammoths and how they died. Food still in their teeth, still in their stomach, undigested. I call birds eye frozen food people. I got curious about this. How long would it take a mammoth to freeze to the point where his stomach would quit digesting the food? But the stomach acid doesn't know he's dead. It's going to keep working. So the food in their stomach is not digested. They had to freeze in less than 5 hours for this to happen. So I called birds eye frozen food people and said, sir, if I stuck an elephant in the freezer, what would happen? It was silent on the other end of the line for a few minutes as they all laughed, like, who is this guy? Finally, one guy said, you'd have a crowded freezer. Well, yeah, I know that. Okay, sir, but how long would it take to freeze an elephant? They said about 5 days, because the outside's going to freeze and the heat's going to be trapped inside. I said, I got to freeze my elephant in 5 hours. How do I do it? They said, cut him up in little pieces. I said, no, elephant. Got to freeze him in 5 hours. He said, well, you'd have to put him in liquid nitrogen, 270 something below zero, whatever it is. Oh, well, that would be absolute zero, 273 Kelvin, or Fahrenheit, Celsius. That never occurs on Earth, those temperatures. But outer space has those temperatures, and this canopy would have had it. So when the canopy collapsed, it would be super cold snow, freezing the mammoths standing up. I've never had an evolutionist give an explanation. Why do we have frozen mammoths and camels near the North Pole? They don't live near the North Pole. They want to give an answer that's got billions of years, and this Cenozoic era, and Mesozoic and Paleozoic. Guys, that's all baloney. The fact is, the water under the crust of the Earth broke up when the fountains of the deep broke up. The water from inside came out, the water from above came down, and the Earth was flooded in Noah's flood. There's enough water out there right now to cover the Earth 8,800 feet deep. If you smooth out the world, there'd be 1.5 miles of water everywhere. Atheists say, where'd all the water from the flood go? You been to the Pacific Ocean? Go over to Pacific one time, and I came back, told the guys in my crew in Pensacola, I was preaching in Australia. I said, man, that Pacific Ocean is huge. He said, that's just the top of it. Good point. There's plenty of water out there to cover the Earth. So my video number 2 talks about this. These are the factors the pre-flood world would explain why they live to be 900. And reptiles, which never stop growing, would grow to be really big. Today we call them dinosaurs. Back then they called them dragons or some other name. I don't care. I don't think the dinosaurs ever cared what we call them. But I think the dinosaurs lived with Adam and Eve. Okay?
Yeah, thank you. FPS, did you want to, or Foxy, did you want to grab any questions from the audience, or?
I have a few from the audience, if I could ask a few.
Yeah. As long as that's okay with Ken.
Brother, I'm getting old and my hearing is bad, and the sound system is something's wrong. If they can type it out, it'd help. But I'll try to follow along and listen. But any questions are fair game. Go ahead.
Okay, hopefully you can answer this question. We have a user in the chat that wants to know your views on Buddhism. Do you think there's wisdom in Buddhism? Do you think Buddhism is evil? What's your thoughts on Buddhism?
Well, there have always been people who try to. There's basically 2 religions in the world, Cain and Abel. Cain brought his fruit and vegetables and said, God, look what I did for you. God wouldn't take it. Abel brought a lamb like God required, a sacrifice. And so many religions are trying to please God with what they do. God, look what I did. I sat still for 4 months and never, swallowed anything or whatever. The Buddhists there's all different kinds of Buddhists, okay? I guess I'd have to have specifics. But the Bible says clearly that God created the world and Jesus Christ was God in the flesh. God came down, became a man, allowed them to kill him, and rose from the dead, and his blood pays for my sins. The Buddhists don't have a Christ. I don't think there's a Buddhist on the planet that knows for sure where he's going when he dies. I know I'm going to heaven. I know I don't deserve it. but I'm forgiven. They struggle all their life trying to get forgiven. They want to live a holy life and all that. But I guarantee if you could look at their thought life, they haven't succeeded. So I think Buddhism is one of the many religions that is a false religion. There are hundreds of religions, probably thousands of religions in the world, and that's one of the false religions. Okay, I don't think we have a book on why I'm not a Buddhist. We have a book why I'm not a Catholic, why I'm not a Mormon, why I'm not a Muslim. We offer all kinds of books on other religions. I like to study what other people believe. I'm not afraid of any of them. Tell me what you believe, and I'll tell you if I think that's what I believe or not. So any specifics about Buddhism they want to know about? Rather, that's a general word, Buddhism, so it contains too much.
No, I think they just wanted your general take on it. So another chatter has the question. He says, how do you reconcile these Bible verses with the contemporary understanding of the earth as a globe? And the verses they quote are the four corners of the earth, the circle of the earth, and the pillars of the earth.
Sure. The flat earth argument started up again maybe 20 years ago. I think some atheists started it just to see if Christians would be dumb enough to fall for it, and they have, okay? I think it's silly, it's ridiculous. The earth is round, it spins, it goes around the sun, 66,000 miles an hour. There's too much scientific evidence that it's irrefutable. Now, what about those verses, though? I think if all of the observers are on Earth, then you would talk about things from Earth's perspective. We talk about sunrise, sunset. Google your weather channel right now. These brilliant scientists talk about sunrise. Well, now hold it. Why don't they say Earth turn? Because the Earth is turning and exposing the sun. It's logical to call it sunrise and sunset because we're the only observers. I tell people if we were driving down the highway at 70 miles an hour, I'm driving the car, and you're in the back seat, and you say, hey, Kent, pass me back a Coke. So we're going 70 miles an hour north. I pick up the Coke, I hand it back at 10 miles an hour to you in the back seat. Did the Coke go forward or backward? Well, that depends. To us in the car, the Coke went backwards. To the observer on the sidewalk, the Coke went forward, but instead of going 70 miles an hour, it went forward 60 miles an hour. So the person in the back seat would not say, would you please decrease the acceleration of that Coke to 60 so I can get it back here? No, just pass me back a Coke. So I think for God to say sunrise, sunset, and the four corners of the earth is an expression. We have all kinds of expressions, I'm hungry as a horse. Well, come on, are you really hungry as a horse, I could eat an elephant. I think there are idioms and what do they call them? In the Hebrew language, there's another word for it. But it's common in any language to have idioms like that. We understand what they mean. So I don't think that's evidence the earth is flat. And somebody else is going to have to handle that. I'm up to my eyeballs in creation evolution arguments. That one is a distraction, and I'm not interested in that one. Okay? Did I lose?
No, we hear you.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Was there yeah, go on, Foxy. You go on. Go ahead.
What's it? We've got a question here from Gary. He wanted to know your take on can someone be past hope of salvation according to Romans 1 while still alive, aka the reprobate doctrine?
Did he say, can they lose their salvation? Was that the question? I missed a few key words.
Yeah, can someone be past the hope of salvation according to Romans 1, in your opinion?
Can they be? Well, I think my clear understanding of Scripture after 55 years of studying this book, I don't understand it all, but salvation has to be by grace. If you could lose your salvation, everybody would lose it every day. Everybody would. My salvation doesn't depend on Kent. It depends on Jesus. Cain and Abel demonstrated it clearly. Cain brought his fruit and vegetables. Abel brought a lamb. There's the difference. I've got a lamb, the Lamb of God, taketh away the sin of the world. So if you could lose your salvation, you'd lose it every day. Now, I think we have two examples in Scripture, 1 Corinthians chapter 5 and 1 John chapter 5. It's possible for a Christian to sin and lose their fellowship. They can lose their joy. They can lose their rewards, and they can even lose their life. 1 Corinthians 5, there's a man living in adultery with his mother. Paul writes to the church in Corinth and said, you guys, turn that man over to Satan for the destruction of the flesh, that the spirit may be saved. This guy's still going to heaven. He's going early, that's all. It's not possible for you as a Christian to sin and go to hell. It's treated differently. If it's a family matter. If your son and my son are out in the front yard playing baseball, and I say, boys, don't play out here, you're going to break the window on the car. And they don't listen, and sure enough, they break the window. What happens next depends completely on which kid broke it. If my kid broke it, this is a family matter. Come in the house, we're going to settle this. We're going to take it out of your allowance or take it out of your backside or whatever, okay? But if your son broke it, it's not a family matter. It becomes a legal matter. Look, you owe me $300 for a new windshield. If not, I'm taking it to court. So if a person is a child of God, you cannot you cannot get unborn. You can get punished, and God punishes His children. So if you think you're a Christian but you sin and do all kinds of things and nothing happens, I doubt you're a Christian. Because if you really were one of God's kids, He'd spank you. He wouldn't send you to hell, but He'd spank you. Make sense?
Yeah, no, thank you. That's a good answer. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, Ken, how would you answer the question in relation to endogenous retroviruses and their placement in the human genome compared to the chimp genome? Because scientists say that when an ERV enters into the host, it can attach itself anywhere in the genome, so that the chance that it would connect to any specific gene is 1 in 23,000. So if we had an identical placement with a chimpanzee, it'd be a chance of 1 in 23,000. What if we shared 2, 3, 4, 5? They say this would be like winning the lottery. What if we share hundreds of them? They say it's mathematically impossible without common ancestry. So how would you answer somebody that brings forth this argument to you?
Okay, let's assume that they are correct, that there are slim chance of it having the same combination in humans and chimps, okay? But their conclusion is completely wrong. Therefore, it proves common ancestry? No. Could it prove a common designer? Could it prove you've gone through a common trauma like the flood? ERVs, the gene code of any creature, is incredibly complex. Each chromosome has 50 million to 250 million base pairs. So ERVs, human endogenous retroviruses, comprise 8% of the human genome. On a biological level, the main difference is that bacteria are free-living cells that can live inside or outside a body, while viruses are non-living molecules that need a host to survive. Not all viruses are bad. We know there are beneficial viruses in our gut, skin, and blood that can kill undesirable bacteria. Okay? Millions of viruses in the world laid end to end would stretch for 100 million light years if you unwound that code and stretched it out. If someone says, because we have similar endogenous retroviruses to apes, therefore, nobody made this code. That's like me saying, I've got a book in my library that has a sentence 7 words in a row, and this other book over here has the same 7 words. Wow. That proves the same author wrote the book. No. I think the code is so complex, to believe it happened by chance is ludicrous. So, endogenous retroviruses, viral genome junk hits the trash. Evolutionists have long claimed human chromosomes infected with many different viruses, which they multiplied in the genome. Then, as some of these sections like virus-like DNA were shown to be functional, they claimed they had become tamed. I think their argument is that these endogenous retroviruses are bad and were added. I don't think we know that yet. I think there's way too much we don't know about the ERVs. At first, they thought it was junk. Now, they're finding use for nearly all of them. DNA sequences, endogenous retroviruses, are abundant in mammalian genomes. ERV sequence got their names because they showed strong sequence similarity to known viruses. Then they claimed the animal genomes evolved in the past. By repeated infection with viruses, they deemed them to be junk DNA. I think this has long been proven wrong, so if somebody still believes ERVs are evidence for evolution, they're way behind on their research. Tell them I said so. I don't take the whole program on this one, but I got plenty on that if you want more on ERVs. Hit pause and for yourself. Okay. They've known for 15 years. They're not junk DNA. Go ahead.
Could I ask you one more in relation to atavism? So if you search the internet, you'll find plenty of pictures of animals with atavism, such as birds with teeth, like chicken with teeth, or you'll find snakes that actually have small legs, where legs would be if they had legs, or humans that have tails that they can actually wag. How would you explain atavisms in light of young Earth creationism?
Well, I think we are dealing with a creation that's 6,000 years old, and you and I are a copy off 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 a copy of our mom, of our great 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 grandpa. The fact that we can still walk and talk at all is pretty amazing. You take a page out of a dictionary and photocopy it, then copy the copy, then copy the copy of the copy. You do that about 20 times, you won't be able to read a word on the page. Do that 100 times, you certainly won't be able to read a word on the page. So the fact that we're a copy off of the original Adam, I think it's amazing that the gene copy process is so good. Now, as far as atavism, are there really things that are holdovers that we used to proves they used to have teeth? All the examples they give and all the examples you gave would be examples of losing something. You're saying chickens used to have teeth, but they've lost them, but if you still get them. Well, that's an example of losing teeth. Where's the example of gaining something? The argument from the human having a tailbone. This textbook, Holt Biology, one of the big publishers for our public school, says humans have a tailbone that is of no apparent use. It's a vestigial structure. The coccyx has no present function and is used to proves we used to have a long tail, really, okay? The tailbone in your body is actually 9 little muscles attached to those bones. There's more than one bone. The 9 little muscles that attach to the tailbones are essential for posture, for defecation, for reproduction. You have to do pelvic thrust to make a baby. You can't do that well without these special muscles in there, okay? So there's plenty of evidence that the tailbone is not vestigial. The muscles there are used all the time. Well, maybe not as often as you want, but this is not vestigial. So but the idea of vestigial structures or atavism is the opposite of what evolutionists need. That shows their desperation for evidence to support their theory. If you want to be related to a chimpanzee, you go ahead. You know your cousins better than me, but I'm not. We're made in God's image. I think anybody would agree there are 3 different types of life forms on Earth. There is plant life, which seems to have a body and it grows and reproduces, but it doesn't seem to have a consciousness of life that we know of. Animals are certainly different than plants. Animals have a body and a consciousness of life. Let's call that a spirit. Plants don't have that, as far as we know. Humans have a body, a consciousness of life, and a consciousness of God, a body, soul, and spirit. Man is different than all the animals. Now, we have some physical things that are the same. It has to be that way. That's so the brown cow can eat the green grass and give the white milk, and I can drink it and get the blonde hair. There has to be nature is we're changing parts. You know, I'm borrowing the calcium that the cow got from the grass, which the grass got from the dirt. I think there's a miraculous web of exchange of minerals and vitamins and nutrients that is obviously designed. I don't have a problem praising God for that. I don't look at that and say, "Wow, that proves I'm related to a cow." That's not the way I look at it.
Okay, what would you say to someone though that says, you got to be kidding me. Do you really think dinosaurs breathe fire and that Adam walked around peacefully with the great predator, the T-Rex?
Well, you got 2 questions there, and several assumptions in the question. There are certainly lots of legends of animals breathing fire. We have a bombardier beetle today that sprays 2 chemicals out of his backside, and it burns his enemies. Hydroquinones, and I forget what else he sprays on, hydrogen peroxide. But Google the bombardier beetle. There are quite a few, but there are several animals that do a type of biochemical warfare to protect themselves. Now, is it possible that there was an animal that could breathe fire? I don't know of any today that actually breathe fire, but the Bible certainly says there was one in Job chapter 41. But see, I don't have to prove the Bible's true. I'm not asking for the Bible to be taught at taxpayer expense. They go off on rabbit trails like this about fire-breathing dragons to draw attention away from their stupid religion. They believe the dinosaurs came from a dot of nothing exploding. And they have a hard time believing a dinosaur could breathe fire. And yet they believe a dinosaur could come from a dot. Hello? Nobody's home in that skull, I tell you what. But yes, I do believe there was an animal. I think they're probably extinct. I think if you could kill one, you'd be a hero. And probably there's a lot of legends of people killing fire-breathing dragons. I don't know what it was. Maybe a T-Rex or something. Now, the Bible also says, the second part of your question, that before the flood came, everything was friendly. They were all vegetarian. Read Genesis chapter 1 and chapter 2 carefully. All the animals ate plants, all of them. After the flood, Genesis chapter 9, God said, Noah, now you can eat meat. You don't have to. And he said, now, Noah, the animals are going to be afraid of you. All the animals, T-Rex, rattlesnakes, all of them, before the flood came, were friendly. All vegetarian and all friendly. After the flood, things changed. But again, 2 Peter said the scoffers are ignorant of that original creation and then the flood that changed things. So, but see, that again is such a minor problem, a fire-breathing dragon, compared to a dragon or a dinosaur or the whole planet coming from a dot smaller than an atom, which is what they, not only do they believe it, they want to require that other students are taught that stuff. That's stupid. Tell them I said so.
Anyone else here have questions?
Go on.
It's you go.
I mean, it might be a rabbit trail, but like I actually do not know the answer to this one. I wonder that, you know, like when like an ice skater pulls her arms in, she'll spin a lot quicker. I sometimes wonder, like, if when the moon was closer, if the Earth might have spun a little bit quicker. I suppose it's not really enough, really, because it's 6,000 years. It probably wouldn't have been that much quicker. But I suppose on their model, the billions of years, it must have been quite a bit quicker if it would have had an effect, which I don't know.
Right. That's called the conservation of angular momentum. And it certainly is a phenomenon that's well studied and well known. Conservation of angular momentum. I have in one of my slides, I don't remember which one now. But yes, if an ice skater pulls their arms in, they spin faster. They stick them out, they spin slower. When you're diving, you tuck tighter, you spin faster, all that kind of stuff. I think we know that rock is heavier than water, okay? Depending on what type of rock. The specific gravity of rock is greater than water. Well, if the Earth had a layer of water underneath the crust of the Earth, and that water came to the surface in the Noah's flood, that would make the crust of the Earth sink in to the void. And let's just pick a number and say the Earth sank in a quarter mile. The crust sank down a quarter mile. Be concentrating the weight in a tighter spot. And so the Earth would actually speed up a little bit Noah's flood because of the exchange of the mass of the water and the rock. So I think the Earth would tuck tighter, spin faster. And so almost all the ancient calendars have 360 days in their year. Why do we have 365.2422 now? What happened? I think the Earth sped up a little bit because of Noah's flood, if that makes sense. Now, it's been slowing down ever since then, but there was a one-time event where it sped up and threw all the calendars off. That's why we have to have leap year.
Yeah, maybe
I
touch
have
on
a question for you.
Okay, go ahead, Nephilim. Go.
I have a question. So what is it about random mutations that we've learned in science, Ken? Has research into mutation conducted since the 1930s? You know, have all these million or so studies, have they shown us reason to believe that accruing random mutations build the structural designs that code for the information to make the stinger in the tail of a scorpion, the eyeball of a fish, et cetera, or has the scientific evidence shown us that mutations destroy the genome, the genetic information, cause weaknesses, deformities, disease, and move humans towards extinction? What would you say to that?
Well, I taught biology for 15 years, and I love this topic. Mutations are, they assume they make something new and better. That's never been observed. They assume natural selection will take over and make it take over and survive and take over the population. And so mutations, this textbook says, mutations are the original source of variation in populations. Darwin saw mutations and realized and thought, wow, everything's related. No, this is crazy. All mutations that have ever been seen are harmful, fatal, or useless. We have some ducks. Every time I take tours of our camp here, Dinosaur Adventureland in Lenox, Alabama, we get in the Jeep and go around tour. And one of the things we do is feed the ducks. So how many are there, Billy? 40 or 50? Yeah, probably. 2 of them have a mutation. The bones of their head didn't grow together right, and so the feathers grow funny over that spot, like they got an afro. Is that helpful? Probably no. It looks cute, but it's not helpful. It's something the enemy can grab onto. It'd be harmful. All mutations I've been made aware of, and there are thousands of mutations, are harmful, fatal, or useless. Nobody's ever seen a good one. If you know of a good one, if there was a good mutation, you'd have to have two at the same time of the opposite sex in the same place, and they got to find each other and be interested. And now that mutation has to be passed on. There's no evidence for any of that. And theoretically, if an animal had a mutation where it was a little better, now what has to happen? All the rest of them have to die, or else that new improved mutation is blended back into the population. This leads straight to the thinking of Adolf Hitler. Adolf Hitler thought the blonde-haired, blue-eyed Norwegians and Germans were the superior race. And we really could speed up the evolution process by killing off those who are inferior, that don't have these traits. World War II, Adolf Hitler, it's because of evolution. So if mutations were beneficial, nobody's ever seen one, you'd have to have two of the opposite sex in the same place at the same time. It just doesn't happen. So there's all kinds of mutations. We can talk about that for hours if you'd like. All mutations I've ever seen or heard of are like this: harmful, fatal, neutral, one-eyed, hairy face, extra thumb. It's a deletion, a duplication. There's no addition of new useful information. None. Always spell check for errors. Yeah. A mutation's a spelling error. I never make typos, right? Ode to the typographical error. Paris in the spring, right? So the idea that mutations is what evolutionists are desperately clinging to as the mechanism to produce these new things. What a dumb thing to hang on to. Nobody's seen a good mutation. And you would need trillions of them to turn an amoeba to a whale. The amoebas don't have arms, don't have fins, don't have eyes, ears. You're going to develop an eyeball from a mutation in an amoeba. You're insane to believe such a thing. Insane.
Thank you. Is there any other things you wanted to bring out, like perhaps just any evidences related to the topic of young Earth creation or anything like that? Or anything in your mind?
I'd like to ask him a quick question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Do you think that when the Earth was covered in water at the flood, do you think that water was salt water or fresh water? Because your answer will depend on determine my next question.
Oh, absolutely. I think the whole Earth was fresh water. I think the mineral salts are constantly washing out of the Earth even today. We know the oceans are gaining salt every day. Mineral salts wash out of the rocks into the ocean. Evaporation, the distillation process, takes out only pure water, leaves the salts behind. Today, the oceans are 3.6% salt, and they're gaining salt every day. The oceans are getting saltier. This is another evidence they're not billions of years old, because they'd be like the Salt Sea or the Dead Sea in Utah or in Israel. It'd be real 30% salt, okay, whatever that number is over there. So I think the whole Earth was fresh water at the time of the flood. And since then, some animals have adapted to the change to salt water. We now have freshwater bass and saltwater bass. And they had a common ancestor called a bass. We have freshwater crocodiles and saltwater crocodiles, and they have a common ancestor called a crocodile. That is no evidence whatsoever that they're related to a flea and a butterfly. So yes, I think the Earth was fresh water. No, we didn't have to bring water on board the ark, just dip a bucket overboard, or I think he used a system of I'll get into that some other time, of hydro pumping with moon pools inside the ark. Every time you go over a wave, fills your water tanks. No, Noah was 600 when he built that boat. He's probably pretty smart to figure that out. So, yes, to answer your question, I believe the Earth was totally fresh water during the flood. It has gained salt ever since, and some animals have had to adapt to that.
Okay, so I have a question people are wanting me to ask, and I've actually never heard your opinion on this. What do you think about the existence of aliens?
Aliens? Do you mean people coming across with no green card?
No, not those. We mean the ones in the ships with the big eyes and the gray bodies.
I think it's baloney. I think there may be top secret government craft that are able to do things like that. There's some strange things that fly, but who'd have thought a hovercraft? 100 years ago, they think you're nuts, or even an airplane 200 years ago, they think you're nuts. So I don't know what all secret stuff the governments have. So there may be something like a flying saucer. I don't know. It doesn't matter. But as far as from outer space, absolutely not. The Bible says Eve is the mother of all living. People ask me, is there intelligent life on other planets? I say, look, I taught high school 15 years. There's not much intelligent life on this planet. There's certainly none anywhere else. None in Washington, D.C., that's for sure. Okay?
Okay, so this leads me to a relating question. Often I actually hear Christians say that they believe angels procreated with women and had a race of giants that were hybrids. Do you believe that to be the case, or do you think they misinterpret the word Nephilim?
I think there certainly were giants in the earth in those days. The Bible's clear about that, but I don't think they came from angels. Angels cannot produce children. Okay, they neither marry nor are given in marriage, the Bible says. I think there were giants. I think there were people 15 feet tall before the flood. And maybe even after the flood, there have been a lot of legends of giants. People have written books on this topic. I showed a few weeks ago on my channel, Genesis Baptist Church, on one of the programs I did, about they found a 15-foot giant skeleton wrapped up with a snake, both dead, both decayed, just the skeleton of the snake. And the snake had a sharp pointed rock in his skull where apparently the giant had killed it, but it had apparently also bitten the giant, and they both died together. I think there's lots of evidence of people 15 feet tall. See, that kind of stuff disappears into the Smithsonian basement, other museum basements, because it goes against the religion. Evolution says man started like a chimpanzee and we're getting bigger, better, stronger, smarter. Anything that would show the opposite of that, it's got to be hidden. It doesn't match the narrative of evolution. So that, yes, I think there were giants. I think there's lots of evidence for that. Okay, that's something, a ministry somebody else has to take on. I don't have time for all that.
But do you think angels procreated with humans?
He said no. He said no.
Yeah, I do.
Okay,
not.
thank
No.
you. Okay, thank you.
I actually have a follow-up question for that. So who in your opinion in Genesis 6:4, what is God referring to when he says when he says the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men? Who are the sons of God?
People have argued that for centuries. I don't have an answer. I know the different theories. One theory is there was a godly line from Seth and an ungodly line from Cain, and they married. Of course, godly and ungodly people marry all the time. It doesn't seem to do anything genetically, unless there was, when God put a curse on Cain, maybe Cain became gigantic, and his children were the giants. There's, like I said, there's several theories about that. I don't know of a way to prove any of them. So I have to wait and get to heaven and find out.
Do we have any other questions from the chat? Like FPS, is there any
Yeah, I have one. I have one more
I've
question.
got
Okay,
I've
go
got a
ahead.
question about if it's okay. So somebody mentioned earlier, they mentioned if you wanted to comment on redshift and the way that they measure the universe through their understanding of the speed of light.
Well, the red shift, if you look at a light source through a prism, it breaks it up into the colors: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. Okay, no argument about that. How? Because that's the different wavelengths of the light are all contained together to make the white light. The prism splits it up by traveling through the glass. And I taught physics and know how that works pretty much. But when they look at the stars, it looks like the red, the lines is shifted over toward the red. They call it the red shift. And I've got many things open on my computer to open that one now, but I'll try. So the red shift is the idea that maybe these stars are billions of light years away. That's one option, and I covered that on video number 7 of my series. Let's see, I should have got that one open earlier, I guess. So I think we don't know how far away the stars are. You can't possibly measure something like that. You try to measure the distance to the stars with this red shift is a stretch. They might be billions of light years away. I'm not saying they're not. But God said 17 times in the Bible, it says God stretched out the heavens. If you read the Genesis account carefully, God made the earth and the heaven singular in Genesis 1:1 in a King James. Then later he made the stars and stretched them out into place. So I think that the stars were stretched out into their place, and they could be billions of light years away and still only be 6,000 years old. I got it. It opened up. Joseph, this computer can do a lot at the same time. Way more than I can. Gee. Okay, red shift, stars. Okay, here we go. What about the red shift? Here we go. In 1814, they rediscovered the lines, began to systematically study and measure the wavelengths of the features. Okay, 570 lines. The dark absorption lines were seen by this guy, and it's supposed to tell the radial velocity of the star. Absorption lines, we can go on for a long time on this. It's interpreted as a Doppler effect. If a car is coming toward you and blows its horn, it squeezes the sound waves together and raises the pitch. So it comes toward you and goes, when it goes past you, it stretches the sound waves out, and it distorts it to a lower pitch. So you can tell when a train is coming by or a car is coming by, it makes a noise, and you hear it drop. That's called the Doppler effect. Okay? It works whether it's passing you or you're passing it. The idea is that maybe the red shift is the Doppler effect of the light, indicating the stars moving away. Could be, okay? Increasing the wavelength. That's a key concept for astronomers. Okay. The wavelength of the light is being stretched. I think that's a reasonable assumption. I don't think you could prove such a thing, but I think that's probably the logical conclusion. What is a red shift? To track the rotation of our galaxy. Okay. In 1910, they saw the light from nearly every galaxy was redshifted. Most of the galaxies in the universe are moving away from us. This is what has been pretty well established for 100 years now. They tried to use the redshift to estimate distance. Well, the Bible says God sits on the circle of the earth and he stretched out the heavens. 17 times in the Bible it says he stretched out the heavens. So everybody's asking the question, how did the light get from the star to the earth? That's the wrong question. How did the star get from here to there is the question. If God made the earth and then made the stars and stretched them out, of course they would have a redshift. But it has nothing to do with time. See, a light year is a distance. It's not a time. It's a distance. It's a big ruler. That's all it is. So because God said he stretched out the heavens, I think that answers the question that the stars were created. I think he made the sun and stars on day 4 purposely so we would know not to worship them. Many cultures worship the sun, and that's dumb. It's a big burning ball up there. Don't touch it. So I think the reason we have a red shift is because of these verses right here. He stretched out the earth, stretched out the heavens. He stretcheth out the heavens. 17 times it says that. Anyway, that's my answer. Go ahead.
Okay, so I have a question. I have a question. So I live on Lake Erie, and I grew up on the lake. And if I go to the lake right now and I flip rocks, I'll see crayfish. They're hard-shelled, bottom-dwelling creatures. There's different types of clams and things. And something that always puzzled me is I would find fossils along Lake Erie. And these would be like brachiopods, and you find plant life. And I believe sometimes you can find trilobites. I have found pieces of trilobite as well. But it always puzzled me, why is it the case if there was a flood 4,000 years ago and everything happened rapidly and things were fossilized rapidly, why don't I ever find fossilized crayfish with these other hard-shelled bottom-dwelling species in Michigan?
Well, do you find crayfish today living next door to these creatures that are alive? So, like I said before, some of the animals might be sorted based upon habitat. I bet if there was, I don't think they've ever found human and frog footprints together in the same rock strata. Humans don't hang out with frogs. So of course you're not going to find the footprints together. So the fact that some fossils are not found in some areas is certainly not evidence for evolution. I think it's a phenomena of the flood. It could be a phenomena of habitat of where they hang out. You don't find human and cow fossils together anywhere that I know of. I think the fact that we have fossils at all is evidence of rapid burial. How many animals died in the last 5 years in the whole world, would you guess? Billions. Just Kentucky, Colonel Sanders killed a bunch of them, okay, to make his chicken. So I don't think there's any question about animals being dying. How many fossilized? None. There's no fossilization process going on today that anybody can see, but we find the fossils, like my petrified clam. We got a whole museum full of fossils here. Fossils exist probably by the trillions, if you want to count diatoms. The fossils exist. They all indicate a rapid burial. And so that would be Noah's flood. I don't think there's any logical explanation besides a rapid burial like Noah's flood would do. So the fact that some are not found together might be a result of their habitat. They don't hang out together. Might be a result of body density. Might be a result of their intelligence or their mobility. Like I said, clams can't run fast, and so they're stuck on the bottom and they get buried first. There might be another answer besides evolution relationship. Atheists look at these types of things and say, wow, this proves they're so desperate for evidence for their theory, they'll take anything. They'll count that as evidence for their theory. I would say it's evidence of rapid burial, Noah's flood.
Okay, so I have one last question from a viewer, and the viewer says that another viewer that they're talking about is agnostic, and they're having a very hard time deciding whether God is real. What do you think the best piece of evidence is to convince an unsure person of the existence of God?
Well, one guy said he didn't believe, one atheist said, I don't believe the Bible, don't believe anything in the Bible. His friend said, you don't believe anything in the Bible? He said, not a word. He said, you prove one verse in the Bible and I'll believe it. So his friend grabbed his nose and started twisting it back and forth till the blood rushed out. He said, what are you doing? He said, I'm proving the Bible. He showed him the verse, the ringing of the nose bringeth forth blood. So I think we can prove some of the verses. You can choose to believe what you want. We're here. Everybody would agree that we're here. And why? What is the purpose of life? If indeed we came from evolution, I ask atheists all the time, if your brain is nothing but a random collection of chemicals, how do you even know you're thinking? How do you know what you're thinking is true? Maybe you got some chemicals in there backwards. You can't possibly even know anything about life. I think if there's a designer to this world, it's logical that he would tell us why he did it and tell us what he wants. What do you want out of us? Almost anybody that produces a product, like make a new car, it comes with an owner's manual. Here's what you got to watch for. Here's how often to change the oil and change the brakes and stuff like this. It's got an owner's manual. I think God made the world and he wrote a book and told us that he did it and told us what he wants from us. Here's the rules. He gave us commandments and rules to live by. If evolution is true, there's no such thing as right and wrong. No such thing. Why would it be wrong for me to shoot you and take your money? If evolution's true, you can't say that's wrong. Why? Who decides right and wrong? Is there a standard someplace? So I feel sorry for the people who are Gnostics and haven't yet decided if there's a God. Go step out and look at the stars, and you tell me, all that fit in a dot, smaller than a period. Tell you what, I'll give you $1,000 if you can squeeze a gallon of milk into a dot smaller than an atom. 1 gallon of milk, not the whole cow, not the whole herd, not the whole state of Alabama, just 1 gallon of milk. $1,000 if you can squeeze it into a dot smaller than a period. It only takes place in the imagination, SpongeBob style. Evolution is a religion. It's a real dumb one. If you want to have it, that's fine. But there's really only 2 options in this world. Somebody made the world, or the world made itself. And if you want to believe that one, you better have some scientific answers. Those who believe the world made itself, I think they need to admit it's a religion. They need to quit demanding that we all teach it to all the kids in school, because it's not science. It's nonsense. Science is what we can observe, study, test, and demonstrate. That's the standard definition of science. Let's see right here. Definition of science. The word science comes from the word seer, to know. What do we know? Science is knowledge gained from using observations, experiments to explain the world around us. Science comes from the Latin word scientia, to know. What do we know? Well, we know cows produce cows. That we know. We've seen that. We don't know cows came from an amoeba. We don't know that. That's not science. Religions attempt to understand and explain the world, but religion is not considered science. I agree. And evolution's a religion. It's not science. So I feel sorry for someone who says they're a Gnostic. They haven't decided yet. Gnostic, I think, comes from the Latin or Greek word, gnosos. What do we know? And they don't think we can know those things. Okay. I think I know. I know from personal experience. There's a God. He's my father. He's my friend. I talk to him all the time.
I think that's the other thing that they don't understand, is that once you start living out your relationship with God, once you start opening your heart up to God, he will answer you. You will feel it. You will know at a certain point that he's actually there. He will give you proof, but you can't expect to develop a relationship with anything if you don't start down the path in good faith and in love and try to even, begin that relationship.
See, science is limited. There's certain things nobody knows what gravity is. Give me a jar of gravity and paint it red. What on earth? Nobody knows what gravity is. We use it all the time. Nobody knows what light is. Give me a jar of light and paint it red. What's a gallon of light weigh? Water. Huh? Water, yeah. So I think there's a lot of things we take on faith. I've used gravity all my life so far. like it most of the time until I fall down. But so I think you don't have to understand everything. I don't understand all about God. I believe in him. And I think people say, God, you show me and then I'll believe. God says, no, you believe me, then I'll show you. Well, 55 years ago, I trusted him as my savior. The Lord, I believe you. He's been showing me ever since. I can't wait to get to heaven. I don't mean I want you to send me tonight, okay? But so yeah, there's a God.
Do we have any other questions, Foxy, for from the audience or anything
Well,
else that we want to bring up? Okay, go ahead.
how much time does he have?
I mean, Kent's always very kind. Sorry, go on,
Yeah,
Kent.
we've been going. I've been drinking water for an hour and a half. I'm about ready to go potty, but I'd like to invite everybody down for Christmas. Come to Lenox, Alabama, to Dinosaur Adventureland. Have a Christmas here. We got 17 lakes for fishing and swimming. We got tours we give. Everything's free. If you stay more than a day, though, we're going to give you a hammer and put you to work. The whole place has been built by volunteers and donations. This is stunning. God is here. It's amazing. I'm an old-fashioned independent Baptist preacher that believes the Bible is true and evolution is dumb, real dumb. But we invite everybody to come, take the tour. If you don't have a family for Christmas, we'll be your family. Come on down.
That's so kind. I mean, some of us are too far to go, but I wish I could have been closer. That would have been amazing. But yeah, like in the future, if you're going to be so welcome to come back anytime in the future. We can accommodate you, maybe debates, whatever. I mean, I'm sure we'll meet again. That'd be so amazing if we can do this again.
Okay. I do a show almost every day, 6 days a week on our channel, Genesis Baptist Church, and we have question answer time at the end. It's live, 7 o'clock Central Time. It's now 8:30 Central Time, p.m. Wherever you are in England, you're probably 5 hours, 6 hours ahead. So people are welcome to ask questions then, or come sit in our live Q&A every Thursday night. Is comments on comments and question answer. Any questions are fair game. Genesis Baptist Church.
I wonder if we should at least try to bring one person up and see if they can behave themselves and ask Dr. Kent some questions live.
Sure.
I think
Yeah,
that we've
Ken.
had a lot of good questions, Sam, and who are we going to trust? Who can we trust to behave themselves?
Probably just
in this
mute them.
situation?
Well, I think he
You've done
did.
it before with AMAs. You just mute them if they get too rowdy.
I
But
was vetting one person for that. These guys with their hands up, I know every single one of them, and they're really badly behaved. So they are bad. So Ken, obviously we'd appreciate it. We've got a lot more questions for you if you've got time. I think we scheduled for an hour and a half, and I really appreciate every second of you being here. It's been excellent. So
Good, sir. Well, thank you. I love doing these. And if some of these people that are badly behaved would like to have a debate, if they think there's proof they came from a rock or they're related to a mosquito, have them. They can do the debate on my channel, on their channel, on Standing for Truth. They do a lot of debates for me. He's a neutral moderator. I mean, he believes in creation, but he'll shut off my mic when it's their turn to talk, shut off their mic when it's my turn. I have simple rules. I'll debate anybody. I'll debate 10 at a time. You can gang up on me. If we do one topic at a time and no interrupting and no cursing and swearing.
Where do we find that again?
What now?
Where do we find that channel?
Where do we find? Well, my channel is Genesis Baptist Church on YouTube, or Kent Hovind Official on Rumble. Our website, drdino.com, DRDINO, has all the places where we're broadcasting. We're in Lenox, Alabama. Go to Pensacola, Florida, go straight north 70 miles, and good luck finding Lenox. It's about that big. We love it up here. Just type in Dinosaur Adventureland. Google Maps will take you right to us.
I really hope that one day
if
I'll be
some of you
able
guys
to
want
come
to
and visit you guys.
if you want to debate, I'll take you all on same time or one at a time. Email my tech guy, Joseph, techsupport@drdino.com. Tech support at Dr. Dino. I want to debate Kent Hovind. He'll set it up. One topic at a time. You go first. Present your evidence for evolution.
Well, to be fair, though, Kent, 10 on 1 isn't fair. You'll whoop us all.
Yeah, maybe that needs 20.
I said 10 on 1 isn't fair. You'd whoop us all.
Okay. All right. Well, you got any questions? It comes a minute, hour and a half. I'm tired, but we can do it again often as you want. You guys let me know.
No worries. Thank you.
Yeah. And by the way, Kent, you seem very, very well right now. You're considering, you're getting on a bit. Like you seem very sharp, very articulate, and very healthy. It's really good to know.
Thank you. When people say they've seen my videos, I never know if I should duck or pucker, because they love me or hate me. But I'll have to say,
You did a great job. A lot of the people in the text, they want you gone, so that you did a great job.
well, I would suggest they could get my video series, 18 hours, called the Creation Seminar Series, for $50. It's on DVD. Go to drdino.com. You can still get it in time for Christmas. I think they got a Christmas special where you can get them to give out to your friends, stocking stuffers. I just want to get the gospel out to everybody. And we allow people to make all the copies you want. Just don't sell them, okay? My intellectual property, but you have my permission to copy it and give it away. One guy in Dallas has made 46,000 copies and given them away to everybody. So please, we want to get the gospel out. I did a whole video series on what on earth is about to happen, called the Woe series. What on earth is about to happen? They want to get that and look at what the Bible says about the future. Watch what's happening in Israel. We're headed for disaster on planet Earth, coming real soon to a city near you. I think you'd be an idiot not to get prepared for what's about to happen. It's coming. So I'd be glad to help. I believe the Bible is true, evolution is stupid, and I'll defend that position against anybody, everybody. I've done 339 debates now. Many of them are on our website, drdino.com. You can get those on DVD also, a lot of them, or watch them on different channels. And a 2-minute sample, type in, "Where did God come from?" by Kent Hovind. That's like, my answer has gone pretty viral, hasn't it? Yeah. So I just want to strengthen your faith. Now, if the Bible's true, you're going to die and face God one day. Where are you going? Smoking or non-smoking? You want to talk to me personally? I take calls all day and half the night. 855-BIG-DINO, extension 3. I take so many calls, it becomes a joke. My daughter was my secretary in Pensacola. She said, "Dad, would you do my wedding?" I said, "Honey, I'd be honored." Type in Kent Hovind's daughter's wedding. It's 1 minute long. It's been played 50 times on America's Funniest Home Videos. Kent Hovind's daughter's wedding. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think that's perfect, right? I mean, that is probably a perfect place to wind things down, let Kent get a drink, and I think he's probably got family to talk to and things like that. But yeah, I mean, thank you so much. That's really, really perfect. Really, really good turnout. Thank you so much.